Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Youth Speaks. It's nice to have time away from the stress that comes with those January mock exams. We had to endure those last month. It felt like the questions we were asked were endless. Now, I'm more worried about the answers and my grades. Let me introduce to you our speaker, Charlie Smith, and our proposer of the vote of thanks, Izzy Gladstone. No one dares question Charlie, but Charlie herself will be scrutinising some of the most frequently asked and greatest questions throughout history. Charlie has been studying her proposal furiously, and soon we will hear what she has to say on the topic. I have a general idea of the path I want to follow and how I'm going to achieve it. In the next couple of years, I hope to go to university. Which university? I don't know. But at the moment, I would like to go into foreign politics, which, let's be honest, is based around dodging questions and feigning answers. Likewise, Charlie and Izzy are also facing these questions, and as of yet are still undecided on what they want to be. It is almost as if we are afraid of asking too many questions, as we have always been taught to answer rather than ask. This is an idea that Charlie explores in her speech.
Phoebe mentioned that perhaps we are taught to answer questions rather than ask them, and I don't want to incur the wrath of all the teachers here when I say that perhaps that is a fault of our education system. So much time must be spent on teaching us the elusive art of box ticking for our exams, that the emphasis on curiosity and exploration can sometimes be lost. The loss of these qualities would be sad indeed, because it is our constant thirst for knowledge as a species that differentiates us from our ancestors the apes. As humans, we're able not just to be excited into curiosity, but are able to investigate and try to explain the cause of our interest, as Newton did when a falling apple spurred him into the investigation and discovery of gravity. However, we must wonder whether it is our entire species that possesses this thirst for knowledge. Is it just a few extraordinary people who are willing to ask difficult questions? One such extraordinary person was Charles Darwin, who was not afraid to challenge what was widely accepted as the truth. When Darwin questioned the origins of our species, he changed the world. In fact, ironically, it has been said that no book other than the Bible has had a greater effect on Western society than Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species. A child-sized human question mark toddling around incessantly asking, why? About everything. I was often told that why has a long tail. It would be upsetting to think that the world actually discourages curiosity. As Einstein suggested when he said, it is a miracle that curiosity survives formal education. Einstein was right. Is school not a place where we are given answers rather than encouraged to ask questions? Finally, I'd like to share with you the story of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which people begin to long so much for the answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, that they build a supercomputer, which takes thousands of years to answer this question of the meaning of life. For all those years, people watch and wait, fervently believing that the calculated, formulated, robotically deduced answer to the most human of questions will solve all their problems. And needless to say, that when the answer is 42, they're a little disappointed. Upon asking the computer what 42 means, the machine replies that depends upon the question. 42 might be the age at which a person is happiest in their life, or it might simply be the answer to 6 times 7, demonstrating that an answer has no meaning without its question, and therefore making questions far more valuable to us.
I would like to take a moment to congratulate Charlie for an engrossing and thought-provoking speech, and also her quick-witted response to the question asked by the floor. I'm sure that you'll all agree that Charlie's speech was very engaging. I thought that the topic, "Is it better to know some of the questions than all of the answers?" is a particularly relevant one to our age group. During our schooling, we are taught to answer questions in exams and classrooms. Seeing as schooling is such a large part of our lives, this habit of answering and accepting could continue into our adult life. I don't know about you, but I think that it is exceptional that Charlie incorporated Shakespeare, Darwin, and Einstein into one speech with such ease. I also enjoyed the juxtaposition of serious Shakespeare quotes and scientific theories against fictional instances. Charlie also mentioned the fact that curiosity and the desire to understand our surroundings is an innately human behaviour. I think that this is true, as we rarely invent machines to ask questions, we only make them answer them. She also speculated about whether this thirst for knowledge is possessed by the whole world or just a limited few. By far the most interesting point was the power that a single question has. Charles Darwin, who could be considered one of the inquisitive few, challenged the widely accepted truth. As a consequence, he changed public opinion and social behaviours when he published The Origin of Species. Higher intelligence is perhaps something that has evolved to allow us to ask difficult questions. Charlie asked a difficult question today: is it better to know some of the questions than all of the answers? Finally, I'd like to thank the organisers of this event for having us here today. I would also like to thank the judges for their attention. Now I'd like to ask you to show your appreciation for our speaker, Charlie.
Once upon a time, 3 teenagers were entered into a competition they knew nothing about. Oblivious to the struggles of speech-making, they ploughed on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amber, and I'm in Year 11, like my teammates here, Alex and Becky. I thought you might like to know a bit about them, so Alex, who is our main speaker for this evening, will be going to Barton Peveril College to study electronics, physics, engineering and history. When he is older, he hopes to be a commercial pilot and wishes to do aerobatic flying along the side. Becky, who is our vote of thanks for this evening, will be going to Southdowns College to study BTEC Business Studies. When she is older, she hopes to set up a business in daycare. And she is also head girl at our school. Last year, she completed the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh Award. I will also be going to Southdowns College to study business studies, English language, psychology and drama. When I'm older, I would like to be a counsellor and would also like to travel around America first. So today we'll be talking to you about the difficulties of writing a speech. Basically, we'll be giving you a speech on writing and performing a speech. Hope you enjoy. I will now hand you over to our main speaker, Alex.
When we were given the task of creating a speech, it seemed a reasonable goal. However, we were naive to think this was the case. For a start, we needed to pick a topic which was ludicrously hard. Not all 3 of us felt strong enough about one thing to talk to you this evening. There could have been millions of things we could talk about, but none that we thought would really interest you. For example, we toyed with the idea of exam stress, but that became more of a personal moan about how hard done by the youth of today are rather than a sophisticated speech. Usually, we could talk all day but about irrelevant day-to-day nonsense. So we decided to do this. Who would have thought a book on tiny animals could keep 3 teenagers captivated for 3 hours? And procrastination, we discovered, was a skill we had mastered. We knew we needed to get on with something, however, or we risked public humiliation, and we hope we've avoided that. You would have thought we could be rescued by the internet, but we were wrong again. When searching for interesting and moving speech ideas, all we came across was chicken soup for the soul and how to buy an elephant, which could be quite interesting, but not very motivating. Suddenly, in the midst of this problem, we had a breakthrough. After endless hours of searching high and low, far and wide, the idea we needed was staring us in the face all along. Although a rather unique option, we thought everyone in this room would be able to relate to what we had to say. I also considered giving a rendition of the national anthem, as that may have filled a few uncomfortable minutes, but however bad it was for me, it would be worse for you, my audience. As despite my best efforts to be a choir boy, my teammates likened my voice to a strangled cat, which I thought was a bit harsh. So yet again we were struggling for quality content for our speech. After all this trouble of finding a topic, we found writing it was even harder. After searching the internet, we found the great speechwriters in history don't even write their own speeches. For example, Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech was written by somebody else, which is a bit of cheek, I think. Right now it feels as though I am there again, looking at my reflection in the mirror, if only that were true. But I suppose it's all not too bad. So here I am, in front of you all and nearing the end of my speech. So as I was saying, I'm still standing, and more importantly, still talking. Who would have thought a month ago I'd stand up in front of an audience, twice, and deliver a live speech? So I'm hoping, against the odds, I've done an okay job. So fingers crossed you liked it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex. I'll now hand you over to our vote of thanks for this evening, Becky.
Thank you, Alex, for that detailed speech. I really enjoyed reminiscing about our experience, but it's not all about me. So, when we were writing this speech, we all thought you'd be able to relate and know how we felt when we were writing it. So on behalf of all three of us, we'd like to say thank you for listening. I'd like to say we could talk about it forever, but I'd be lying to you. I mean, we struggled for just 6 minutes. I'd like to congratulate all of the other teams as well, as we understand how hard it is to think of a topic and write a speech. I think you've all done very well, and there must be some very budding speechwriters in this room. I'd also like to say well done to the rest of my team, Alex and Amber, as they spoke very confidently. Although I would much rather have been at the beginning instead of worrying the whole 10 minutes. I mean, the anticipation was killing me. But I am glad I only got the vote of thanks and not the whole speech, let's be honest. Robin had a better ride than Batman. When we got told about writing this speech, we thought it'd be quick and easy, but we were proved wrong. Although we do know now it is going to help us in later life. And we now know the expectations for the job and for presenting in front of our colleagues. And we realise how important it is to be able to write and present confidently. We also feel like this opportunity has really worked in our favour, and the skills we've gained will be invaluable for our future. We're also a lot more confident in ourselves for writing and presenting in front of you tonight. So thank you for being such a receptive audience and allowing us to present in front of you. Anyway, back to our story. Those 3 teenagers in the beginning actually did quite enjoy that competition, and against all odds, we made it. Thank you.
And the speech title is Paper Passion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming tonight. My name is Grace Tang, and I am the chairperson for this evening, with our main speaker, Natasha Barker, and our proposer of the vote of thanks, Samadaya. One of the main things that links us all is our passion for literature, and as literature students in sixth form, it is vital for us to read, whether that be for work or for leisure. However, we can see that reading classical books, or books in general, is on the decline, and to us that's a major issue that needs to be settled. This is due to the way that books have influenced our lives. I personally grew up as a rather shy child who used books as an escape from reality. I remember, as well as others, reading late at night underneath my duvet with a torch as my only source of light. Natasha grew up surrounded by books, partially due to a love of fairy tales that exist to this day, but also to help her with her dyslexia. This helped her immensely, as her dyslexia is not something that hinders her in life now. In addition, her passion for reading has not diminished, as she's currently endeavouring to complete 52 books in a year challenge. Now, here's Natasha Barker with her view on reading and the problems that are beginning to arise.
Thank you, Grace. At least one book will always influence you from the day you started reading it. Be it a children's book, a literary classic, or just a book that will always remind you of the time at which you read it. There will always be one, and that book is bound to be a little escape for you. And yet, fewer and fewer children are reading for fun, and worse still, parents aren't encouraging their children to read as much. As a child, the prospect of visiting a library or a bookshop was an exciting one. But with the shutting down of many local libraries, many children won't have that excitement anymore, let alone the prospect of the weekly visit to the library bus to their street, which was one of the highlights of my week at around 9 years old, walking home from primary school to find the library bus parked at the end of the street, encasing hundreds of books I was yet to read was always thrilling. In our society, there is a decline in reading physical books, which is due to many reasons, such as the rise in popularity of e-books, the closure of libraries, and the decrease in the amount of time dedicated to compulsory reading at secondary school. Our society is built on the influence of great famous classical novels that were written at various points throughout history. But to this day, we still use the ideals from these novels and will probably continue to do so in the future. Unfortunately, the decline of reading actual books will prevent this from happening, since people look to films and various other forms of entertainment. With this, the novels that once corrected the wrongs in our society will slowly dissipate. And yet, the majority of the UK has now turned to reading on their Kindles, iPads and smartphones. But for me, that takes away the excitement of getting a new book. I have to admit, one of the best parts of buying a new book is that new book smell and no amount of book perfume. Yes, it does exist and is available on the internet. Can make up for that smell when I buy a book online. But what would be the point in a book perfume if it isn't for books? The fragrance, Paper Passion, available for a modest £54.41, is designed to be worn by book lovers, perhaps as a way to allure other book lovers. I adore the smell of books, as you may have gathered, but I can't imagine it would be an attractive scent to wear. I would be simply confused if a member of the opposite sex came up to me smelling of books rather than aftershave. Having had a Kindle thrust upon me by my parents, so that I can save myself money when buying books, I can understand the ease and appeal of buying books electronically, and the amount of money I must have saved in 2013 by having a Kindle should be enough to make me want to preach to our e-readers from the rooftop of Portsmouth Central Library. And yet, I still find myself yearning for my hardback copy of Alice in Wonderland. Perhaps I'm too set in my ways when it comes to books. Creating an emotional attachment with some words on a screen is much harder than creating an emotional attachment with some beautifully printed words on a crisp paper that has been bound in such a way that it makes my heart flutter at the sight. Oh, and there's that smell, of course. Don't get me wrong, buying books online has led me to discover a plethora of novels I would never have dreamt about picking up. The prospect that nearly all classical novels are available for free makes me weak at the knees. But nowadays, it would seem, more people would rather pick up some 50 Shades of Grey style story than the complete works of Shakespeare, which, as we're discovering in AS literature, is easily just as raunchy. More and more people seem to be moving away from reading classics or modern classics to reading chick lit or Katie Price's autobiography. I grew up surrounded by books, and for that reason I would much rather read The Great Gatsby than a holiday romance, or yet another teen vampire book. The idea that parents are relying on iPads to keep their children entertained, rather than the joys of Millie Molly Mandy or The Hungry Caterpillar, terrifies me to the point where I want to curl up in a ball, surrounded by the books I was read as a child, and rock back and forth repeatedly. We live in a bite-sized society, where no one seems to have the time to sit down with a book and a cup of tea. Reading is an escape and one of the most relaxing things a person can do. And yet we find ourselves vegetating on the sofa watching rubbish on the TV. Roald Dahl famously wrote, "So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV sets away and in its place you can install a lovely bookcase on the wall. And I can often think of nothing more apt if I find myself watching soaps of a weekday evening. To say that I find it upsetting when people refer to the films rather than the novels the films are actually based on is an understatement. And my friends here have often been subject to a number of angry rants regarding the matter. But surely parents should introduce their children to the novels rather than the films beforehand, or once a child has expressed a liking for a certain novel-based film. Perhaps I'm too passionate about books, but you don't hear of films that have influenced social changes like books have in the past. And let's be honest, there are worse things a 17-year-old girl could be passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Now, any questions?
Yes, one question. What should your local library do to beat off the challenge of the tablet?
Natasha, what do you think local libraries can do? I believe that local libraries could make it more appealing to go in there. The local library we have in Gosport, the Discovery Centre, when it became the Discovery Centre, there was a massive increase in the amount of people going there because it isn't just a library. It has classes in the summer, in the evening. It has a museum at the top. It has a cafe, so people want to spend time in there. I know that I don't see people go in there with tablets ready to sit down and read a book. They go in there and find a book they haven't picked up before. And summer reading schemes and the library bus increase that interest as well. I think local libraries can just put themselves out there and make themselves more than just a library to increase the reading and to reduce the use of tablets. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you, Councillor David Hall. Now, Summerton immediately loved books as a child, but by no means did she dislike them. It was just that she grew in a rather sports-orientated family, so reading was never truly encouraged. However, it can be seen now that she's grown to love reading, as she plans to study literature at university. This proves that a wider range of audiences could come to love books again, as she was influenced by such events as summer reading clubs for children, or as Natasha said, the library bus that would visit her road every couple of weeks. Now, let me pass you on to Samadana.
Thank you, Grace. And Mr. Horn for your question. I'm glad to see that I'm not the only person who has a joint loyalty to a hardback book. Which brings me to your speech, Natasha. Your anecdotes from your childhood, although not entirely similar to mine, remind me of my love of books prevailing through most things when growing up. From Grace's introduction, you've probably gathered that my parents are not literature fanatics. Still, it never stopped me from reading the BFG to my older sister every night after school when I was 8 years old. On the rare occasions that we'd grow tired of hearing about Sophie and the Giant's antics, I'd furiously scribble down stories of my own, or whatever pieces of paper I could find, to retell before we went to bed. To stop my bedroom resembling a scrapyard, my mum bought me a notepad which was roughly the size of my torso, and I carried it around with me as if it was an extra heavenly-smelling limb. Before my reading lessons in Year 3, I'd always wanted to be a professional footballer. But who needs to go outside and venture with real people, and a character can take you to Wonderland and beyond? From the fact that I was out of breath merely walking onto the stage, you can guess that I now prefer to exercise my mind. And now that I'm more mature, I'm always wondering what makes a book worth reading. To my mum, it's something that doesn't contain too many complicated words. To my dad, it's something that doesn't contain too many words at all. For me, I love reading books that challenge society's conventions and dare to be controversial. And I feel in this day and age, reading itself is a hobby that is becoming more and more controversial. If the library bus isn't brought back into action by the time I'm driving, I can assure you that I'll drive it around myself. And now, ladies and gentlemen, can I please ask you to join me in thanking our main speaker for this evening, Natasha.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Rotary Club, my fellow competitors. My name is Harry Swift, and I'll be your chairman for this evening. On my right is Tom Bonnet, who will be our main speaker, and on my left is Shai Tapsa, who will propose us a vote of thanks. Now, we are all currently Year 10 students who are studying at Horndean Technology College, and we're looking at our GCSEs. It's all hard work, but at the moment we're fine with it. Now last year, Tom, Charlie and I all took part in the same competition you speaks, but we took part in the intermediate category. We looked at how stereotypes cause people to judge other people just by their background. For example, Charlie and I were both born and raised in Essex, but that doesn't mean we can tell analog time or blow our noses like a professional, as a certain celebrity in the jungle might say. Now, another preconception, which we'll be looking at more in depth today, is based on our hobbies, video games, and in particular, violent video games. Now, if I'm being honest, I enjoy a good video game, as well as violent ones. Doing things which are unthinkably illegal in real life, but of perfectly fine in game. I usually think this because the events that I see are usually larger than life and very unrealistic. Things you'd expect from films by people like Stallone and Schwarzenegger. Now, the way the media portrays video games are evil, barbaric, satanic devices which turn the wonderful young minds of the children into raging psychopathic murderers. And while there have been some shocking cases of violence, there are only a handful which are linked to other cases with TV and films. And usually previous mental health disorders are involved. So do I personally, or us, as a group, think that video games are bad for us? Not really. If they're not excessively played, then we generally see that there's no negative effects on the body. Here's Tom to tell us more.
Thank you, Harry. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our light-hearted presentation on how playing computer games doesn't turn you into a bad-tempered, murderous psychopath. I'd like to start by proposing a question to you. Do you, as a person, know someone who owns a computer game? Can you raise your hand if you know someone who owns a computer game? Now, is this person you know an angry, violent character? I'll leave that one up to you. The three of us, we all play computer games. I have a PlayStation 3, and my favourite game is FIFA, a football game. Harry has an Xbox 360, and his favourite game is Call of Duty, a shooting game, which puts you in the shoes of a frontline soldier. And Charlie also has an Xbox 360, and his favourite game is Skyrim, a mythical world full of spells and monsters. We don't consider ourselves violent, bad-tempered young men, so please don't think we came strutting in with pistols in our pockets. There are various consoles out there to attract our attention, such as PlayStation and Xbox, but there's also Nintendo DS, Nintendo Wii, and also PC gaming has become incredibly popular over the last few years. In 2009, Harris Interactive conducted a study to see how many households in Britain own a computer game. Their research showed that 1 in 4 households in the country have a games console in their house. The study also suggests that the age group who play computer games the most is us, teenagers. Are games played by us teenagers age appropriate? Do you know the content on the game you bought your child or grandchild for Christmas this year? One of the games you may well have bought them is Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto 1 to 5 has sold over 150 million copies to date. Grand Theft Auto 5 was released on the 28th of September last year and sold 29 million copies within its first month of release. It cost £160 million to make, a record, but it has made £650 million since its release, which is £200 million more than the original Star Wars film. In fact, we think they let loose our imaginations. They can take us away from everyday life. They can also be educational, you might not think, but that is true. It's been scientifically proven that if you play computer games, you have 30% quicker reaction to people who don't. And of course, they're incredibly enjoyable. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Well done, Tom, for that great speech on the subject of video games and how they impact upon society, and for answering that interesting question about the chances of the older generation learning how to play these video games. Now, video games may not be a subject that you're all familiar with, but I'm sure there are a few hardcore gamers among you. But it's weird, isn't it, to think that something as simple as Tetris has evolved into perplexing puzzle games and ferocious fantasy worlds. What happened to the good old days of Space Invader? On a serious note, I hope that Tom and Harry have successfully presented the unbiased facts to all of you. While we enjoy video games, we admit that there are many, many negatives. However, new research from Stetson University, which is in Florida, has shown that children's imaginations are increased more by playing video games than by watching television or going on the internet. The study also showed that aggressive games do not produce aggressive children or teenagers. On the contrary, the study showed that violent video games had an almost slightly calming effect on teenagers, especially vulnerable teenagers. By vulnerable, I mean teenagers who are suffering from depression or attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Why is this? As Tom said, video games teach us about the world around us, and they let loose our imagination. You might not believe me at this point. So take the popular video game franchise, Assassin's Creed. Sounds like a mindless, violent killing game, doesn't it? Assassin's Creed. I thought so too. So I was really surprised by the historical richness of the worlds that you play in and the unbiased facts that they present to you. I've learned so much about Renaissance Italy, the Third Crusade, the Ottoman Empire, and the American Revolution through hours of exhilarating gameplay. Now, I'd like to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming and listening to our speech, and I hope you'll join me in giving Tom a round of applause.
The winners of the intermediate group speaking competition this evening, and I have to say it was extremely close and we had to debate it long and hard. West Hill. Congratulations, very well done. Congratulations, well done. Winning team for the senior trophy, again, a close run thing. Again, all the performances were excellent, but the prize, someone has to win, goes to Portsmouth High School.
All of you. I'm amazed. From 11-year-old up to, 13 is it? Absolutely amazing. I couldn't have done it at that age. So, good luck. Thank you.